Welcome everyone to our SPED NET webinar, Driving for Neurodiverse Learners with Andrew Arboe. We are pleased to have you joining us. I'm Eve Kessler, co-founder and executive director of SPED NET, and our tech consultant, Ali Sheffers, will be hosting this webinar. SPED NET was created over 25 years ago as a nonprofit to educate and empower parents of students with special needs to become their children's best advocates. In addition to our webinars and presentations, we have a terrific and easily accessible website with videos of all our presentations and webinars sorted by topic and speaker, as well as related articles and materials. We have published an excellent interactive guide to special services, bringing knowledge to the table, how to be an effective advocate for your child. It's free on our website with paperbacks available for purchase. If you have a student in the Wilton Public Schools, you may receive a paperback copy free of charge. Today, we welcome Andrew Arboe, a self-advocate within the autism community, who will discuss his driving journey and the executive function and sensory challenges he overcame. He has worked with Autism Families Connecticut, Autism Services and Resources Connecticut, Planning Across the Spectrum, The Next Street, and the Plainville Community Schools. Andrew graduated from Manchester Community College with an associate degree as a disability specialist. He currently attends Charter Oak State College, where he is working towards a bachelor's degree in psychology and hopes to become certified in autism. If you find our information and support helpful, please feel free to donate to SPED NET. We're a nonprofit organization, and your donations go directly into programming. A couple of ground rules. Be mindful that this is an open forum and the presentation is being recorded, so we can't guarantee confidentiality. You may not want to reveal any private information in your questions. The webinar video will be sent out to all of you by email tomorrow and posted on our website and YouTube channel thereafter. Andrew will take questions at the end of his talk. Please type your questions into the Q&A and not into the chat. It's easier for me to monitor that way. Any information provided in the presentation is for general informational purposes only and is not intended to be legal or therapeutic advice. Lastly, this webinar is presented in partnership with Wilton Public Schools and the Newtown SPED PTA. Thank you, Andrew. We'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you for an introduction. Just gonna screen share. This should show up without any difficulties. I hope everyone can hear me pretty good. And I'm gonna keep my eye on the chat, but I know a few people will be looking at that too. So again, questions near the Q&A, that would probably be good for in terms of time. And I will also be conscious on time as well on my end, since it's about an hour. Let me just get my clock there. I can be conscious. Okay. All right. Presentation. I actually did this last week with ASRC, but here I am again. Tonight's title, Let Driving Provide with a Autistic Perspective on Driving. This kind of goes over about 5 years of me since just about ever since kind of getting my license, so it kind of goes over quite a bit. But I guess for that, introductions is pretty much required. My name is Andrew Arboe, and I have over 5 years of professional autism work for the following companies in Connecticut and a little bit in Newark, but thankfully close to Connecticut. I was with Autism Families Connecticut. I was a job coach in the Plainville Community Schools near the Britain. I can't speak today. The New Britain area, for context. I was with ASRC for a bit. I did some work for Planning Across the Spectrum on the Next Street. I started driving with autism for a year. Program's currently on hold. I wish I can provide more information, but it's beyond my control. And I'm part of the Anderson Center for Autism's Echo Autism team. And then finally, I'm currently work for Focus Center for Autism in Connecticut. So quite extensions. And before I go ahead to our agenda, I just want to point out, and something I always like to do in these presentations, is that the following experiences and strategies that we'll go over work for me, and it does not represent everyone else on the spectrum, because autism is different for everyone. I always like to start those. I don't want to kind of talk for the whole community and what driving works, because it's going to be different for everyone. And it might be possible some of you may get some ideas from this, and some ideas that might be better than mine. So again, I don't want to speak for everyone here as much as possible. Okay, with that the way, let's look at our agenda. Talk about my time with pre-license and then the post-license, along with my accuracy, and kind of what driving gives me overall. And the fact that it's been about almost 5 years since I've been doing this sort of topic, and 46 people, ooh, not bad, and hit these numbers in a long time. So this is actually a really good turnout. But anyway, way back in 2017, 2018, I used these following transportation before I started driving. Since it was back when I didn't have my license, I used a mix of public transport or the city transit for both work and college reasons. As mentioned, I was taking classes at Manchester Community College. I was in their disability specialist program. Yes, it's a program that exists. Not a lot of people know about it, but it's a associate's degree that exists in Manchester. And I like to kind of tell people because it's kind of one of its kind. And then I used also a mix of Uber because some colleges, they love evening classes, and I was forced to take some evening classes, so Uber came quite handy, that and also the weekend outings as well. And I took some lights when I was, and then finally trains for those select New Haven trips, so I kind of used these following during this time. And my need for driving didn't really came up until my college, until I got more into my college degree. A lot of the jobs in the disability specialist field, like the mentoring, the life skills, and the therapies, required like a certain mileage for outreach. The position that you see, probably pretty old, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's still, if maybe like a different version of this is still up, is for Genesis and Willimantic, that's like east side of Connecticut, for a mentoring position, and text might be a bit hard to read depending on the size of the photo, but pretty much like it says that one who applies here must be willing to travel within 30 miles, and you have to reliable transportation and a driver's license. So driver's license in this case is a must. And the more I kind of looked into these sort of positions, I realized that I needed driving to achieve a higher quality of life. And it led to several challenges, which includes the first one being anxiety from both myself and my dad's. A lot of it came from my dad because he himself was super anxious about me driving because of autism, and he's rightfully so, because with all the positive and all the different characteristics that autism have, factually, autism does impact certain characteristics that makes driving possible, like the executive functioning, the sensory processing. And we will be going over both of those quite a bit. I will provide some examples throughout this presentation. And me being self-aware of his own anxiety, that kind of doubled my own anxiety on the world. And let's actually go into executive functioning. And why it's important, because it's incredibly important for driving, because it deals with all the split-second decision-making skills. It kind of deals with that. It's like kind of knowing an example kind of below is kind of how you time a lane change, especially down in the areas here, because I'm pretty sure you can go into Wilton around, I'm pretty sure you can go down there, I think it was Route 5, Route 15, the Marriott. And the Marriott can be kind of yikes in terms of travel. Also gets really crowded during the rush hour and the evening times. I've been there several times the last couple of years, and it definitely requires a good amount of patience. And there was a lot of things to think about too, like it's narrow and the entrance and exit ramps are super short, so you have to do some quick maneuvers to get over there. And also, just the timing, there's not a lot of rain, so again, it's just kind of a tight highway in comparison to 84 and a few other highways in the state of Connecticut. So those are just examples, and again, just kind of being able to do these multiple steps at the exact same time, like again, like speeding up for a highway entrance ramp while you also have to keep an eye on the vehicles on the left so you can actually merge into the highway. So it's like there's a lot of those little things that kind of add up to the decision-making skills. And along with time management, that plays a role in executive functioning as well. Memory does also play a role here. So executive functioning is used a lot for everyday driving. And then another issue that came up during this time also in Connecticut-wise is the lack of resources during this. During that time, there were a few studies that actually looked into driving in terms of strategies, and there was not a lot I could actually look up and again, information that was kind of outdated during the time. And a lot of the written content that's not research are mostly done by different organizations and other like parent perspectives, which is great, mind you. I just want to get that out of the way. Just for those that I think I just couldn't find any of this I can't speak today. I couldn't find any of like industrial perspective on driving. Those was mostly done by more to particular crowds during that time. And then I'm trying my best to not bash the state of Connecticut, but it's probably inevitable. And I did attend a professional development conference for my job. And yep, and there were a few comments on Connecticut, which I can't blame several people on. But pretty much the state of Connecticut during that time had several workshops and conferences on special education and autism, and for any transportation talks, it mostly talked about public transportation, which again is not a bad thing. Like choices is a lot better than having none. Just during that time, I never saw anything that stood out on talks on driving. So again, it's kind of like it kind of like swept under the lugs during this time. Like, and it's not really Connecticut or at least the school system's fault because autism in general it can be very complicated, and there's a lot of different a lot of complications due to a lot of the characteristics and the levels of supports people have, levels of supports that can come with autism as well. So there's a lot of like different ways to kind of look into this. So I was convinced to attend a driving school. So I went to a rigor driving school locally over at the next street. This was at the Avon location. That's in the Farmington area. I actually almost disclosed my autism over there, but I kind of wanted to be in a regular classroom, so I just did that and did that did that and went from there. And the school over there, they did really well during that time. I can't speak to I can't speak to what they do now in turn. I don't know what they do now at the same location. But the Avon location was really good to me. It kind of helped me develop like a confidence with driving local roads, which is again important because again you have to get the basics of driving down. And if you don't have a lot of local experience, then what you're doing, you're not going to be ready for places like Hartford. You're not going to be ready for the Marriott the Marriott way of like the highways. You won't be ready for Pacific roads without that basic experience. And thanks to thanks to school, a lot of my memory on basic driving steps were kind of stored more, meaning I just got a lot more used to the executive functioning aspect of driving. So I just saw that I saw that I was able to pull it off. I was able to pull off on attorney license, and I just needed more time to replace the anxiety. And this isn't where the challenges end. There's one other challenge that came after me attending driving school, and pardon me, and that is my own schedule. Back in 2017-18, I worked part-time in 2 jobs, and I also attended again management security in college. So I was forced to practice on the weekends, which isn't ideal because I wasn't able to actually get practice on the weekday, so I was forced to go on the weekends. And family, including my dad, works full time, and I can't just ask him. I can't just ask him to go off to kind of go drive right after he works full time. So that wasn't going to happen, and I wouldn't even dare to ask him on that one. So because I only had time to practice on the weekends, I realized that to be able to solve this other challenge or overcome this challenge, I needed to develop a driver's routine to actually get experiences, and that comes in the form of several places I used for said routine. And the picture here is actually the first car I drove on the Toyota Matrix. God bless that car. I drove that for the first year and a half, and then unfortunately the car I had to get rid of it to get a new car. So I had a gas leak during pandemic, so kind of whipped there, but it will always have a place in my presentations as far as I'm concerned for pictures. And it was a glorious car. But anyway, I use these places for my routine because I like video games. And luckily in Central Connecticut, there was like 1 or 2 video game stores. Of course I use it. It's a place I like and I care about, and I'm able to get experience. So that was the first one. And then special education and autism events, like absolutely I will take advantage of that because it's also a work field, and work field, and it's one I care a lot about. So of course, if I'm able to squeeze something in, I would do it in a heartbeat whenever I can. And then the other one is just active like town centers with like social outings. I don't know how many here are familiar with West Harvard Center. They also call it Blueback Square. It has a lot of shops, a lot of restaurants over there. And I have like a spot where I can be able to drop myself off and my dad can do kind of whatever afterwards. So like for the like those centers I was able to use as an excuse to get driving in because it's a lot better than not getting driver's experience. And then I also had a weekend job with Autism Friendly Connecticut when they used to be in Newtown. They were in Berwyn, Connecticut now, along with another Autism Academy in the same place as well. And with Autism Friendly Connecticut, I was able to go through a lot of back roads. I used a lot of just stop signs and there's some lane changing. Just introduced me to a bunch of more of the local landscape, which again is really good for overall experience. And I just got more confidence as a result, and allowed me to tackle more highways thanks to that. So with all these pieces in mind, I was able to get a lot more experience. It just made weekends work despite the disadvantages. And thanks to all of that, that led me to go do my roll test on October 30th, 2018. And the fact that about almost 4.5 years is still surreal to me, that it's the fact that it's gotten this far and I'm doing these sort of things, like it's still such a weird milestone to achieve by now. But pretty much at that time, I did everything I needed to do with practicing, and now the main challenge, I forgot it shouldn't have an S, but I'll be changing that like after this. The main challenge was calming any nerves I've had during that time. And with that, and how I solved it was probably a pretty ridiculous way. Most people would not expect it, but it worked for me because I can be quite weird at times. Like coffee calms my anxiety down at times. Not everyone, but cold coffee just does that for me. For example, during that time I was sitting at the DMV in Brailsfield. Brailsfield allows you to do well test. I used a memory of remembering feelings I've had towards a video game's final boss where it required me to become and being it perfectly. It was still one of the hardest video games I've ever played. It was an action game that turned into a music game out of nowhere, and it required me to hit every note perfectly for 7 minutes. But still one of the hardest things I've ever done in the years of me playing video games. And it took me like about 9 months. Yeah, 9 months to actually go through it. And it started to click with me the more I realized I had to be calm and to be able to kind of just do my thing. And after a lot more practice, I was able to beat it, thank God. So I remember that memory when I was sitting in the DMV, and then the DMV inspector, called me over to do the test. And upon arriving, I used my vehicle for the test. I just went to the comp state and I just did what I needed to do, and I passed. And passed and just in time, because one thing I can't stand in for Connecticut DMVs is the fact that permits expire 2 years. I mean, what happens if people need more experience? You have to, like, if your permit expires, you have to redo the whole knowledge test, which is kind of tedious if you ask me. If you already did it like once, that should be the case. You don't have to like they don't really have to penalize you for not doing time. That's just my personal opinion on that one. But anyway, getting my license, had two things occur. Um, First couple is that I got a sense. The first is I got a sense of relief from being able to actually get my license, and the fact that I was able to that I'm now, or at the time, I was able to make full use of said degree without any transportation limitations. And I didn't kind of go right into big roads. I kind of just went to local roads for the time being to just get more used to the driving routine, since I'd be driving a lot more often for good reasons. Because again, basics is very important. And so I tackled small before I take longer trips, aka highways, which were around me to do even more roads. So I kind of structure myself where it just makes sense. I'll just do what makes me comfortable. Like other people, they don't don't feel comfortable on the highway, so they stay a certain road. So everyone has like their different style to think about. And then the other thing was I took my first step in advocating my experiences. And right after I got my license, and I still remember going into Barnes and Nobles and West Hartford during this time, like having a coffee and just have one of my older laptops before it kind of crapped out. I created a PowerPoint that's like this, but it was a lot more drafty. I kind of created a PowerPoint just to be able to kind of share this sort of experience I've had with special education departments and other organizations. I mean, if no one else was advocating about this, I might as well give it a try. It's better to be someone talking about driving when no one else at all. So I was looking at that, and funny enough, after I completed it, I was able to put it up on pretty much Connecticut's DSS page, the Department of Social Services autism page. Again, very drafty, and I probably look at it. I probably will cringe on the yellow colors I did for it. It was quite yellowy and rare and red colors as well, so might be a little too bright for its own good. But it's good. But it was kind of like a good first step for the advocating, and it led to one of my more defining moments in my professional career. In July 23rd, 2019, I did my first ever presentation with the Connecticut Family Support Network. And again, they are an amazing organization that do a lot of webinars throughout the whole state. And they have different districts in each part of Connecticut. So if you're looking for a lot of good family resources, and they do tackle other disabilities too, I can vouch for them. They do a lot of honest, good work. But anyway, when I was able to set this up for the first time, I was super stoked about doing it for the first time. Like me being able to kind of gauge people's reactions on me presenting this topic. And this time, and this photo that you see is what actually was what happened, Kurt. This was at Autism Families Connecticut's old location. So they had like a big upstairs where they have most of the social programs, like the Lego one. So there's kind of like a big room where they had all these bigger tables, and the picture that you see here, about 30 people showed up, including three companies, or I think Next Street and Easter Seals, and in a few other places too. So it was telling during that time that people were trying to find driving resources. And I just felt that fire success, and you could tell I was having a blast in the pitch. I had short hair during that time. I think I got a haircut during that time. But it was like a success, and it led to a lot of other professional developments. And everyone, everyone that attended it was really impressed with the materials and the experiences I shared. So and that's when I realized that there was a lot of power into what I was presenting about. And again, it led to several opportunities and kind of like led to other opportunities too. Like, and I'm just gonna move this, it's blocking the text. In fall of 2019 to March of 2021, I went to a partnership with the Next Street to help out on their autism program. And they used to have it. I'm not sure, I think the website's probably done by now, but it's called Driving with Autism Spectrum Disorders. And I kind of helped them. I don't know why I keep forgetting I need to get rid of this part here, but that's in the two changes I will make right after here. Gonna be mindful of that. So I helped them in the launch of their own program, and I kind of enjoyed the various reactions because it was the first time of me doing like a large scale collaboration where I could actually create something from scratch and just really work with other people too. And during that time, also around the years, I also wrote several publications for Autism Spectrum News. They're an online newspaper, but they do print physical, and they present a lot of good New England autism news and other articles over there. So they're a really good newspaper as well. And during my time with playing across the spectrum, I also also engaged in online consultations nationwide because this was during the pandemic era, and a lot of places were going online during that time. So knowing the landscape and also taking advantage of this, I was able to consult with parents and new drivers on what kind of strategies they could do for their own like situation and what resources they could find in their own states. And I had a good time with that because I always like to get to know the personal circumstances of the parents and the drivers, and then trying to like brainstorm along with them being like the main force of just try to come up with a solution to their to whatever problem they may have of driving, whether it's an anxiety issue or a motivation issue. Just kind of like find a way to make it work. And I also spoke in multiple conferences in 2021, like the World Autism Conference with the U.S. Autism Association. I also spoke in Arizona, the Autism Society of Greater Phoenix, and a few other conferences as well. And oh, there it goes, much better. And then from December 2021 to November of last year, I launched Driving with Autism to kind of create a webinar series for families that kind of help them with driver readiness. Like I kind of going over 8 topics, and I had a bunch of other resources. I was originally going to be doing all these partnerships. Although I did ran about I think it was like free series over last year. And due to complications, the series is just on hold, and I don't have much control about that. So I don't know if anyone joined here because of that. I wish I could give a lot more information, but again, I apologize for lack of information. There's not a lot I can do on that one. But that out of the way, but thanks to Driving with Autism and running that and getting some self-business skills and getting some lessons from that, other opportunities came in November 10th of last year. I actually spoke about a lot of the experiences through the Hudson Valley Autism Conference with YAI in Newark. And then I was also introduced to ADED, which is the American Association of Driver Rehab Specialists. I actually wrote an article for them. And actually, next month, I'm going to be a keynote speaker with Autism Connections or Pathlight in Springfield, Massachusetts next month on the 27th. I'm quite excited. My first ever keynote speaking. And I didn't think I'll be speaking about autism and driving in a bigger setting. So I'm quite excited about that conference. And if you know anyone in Massachusetts, there's still signups and whatnot, and it should be a great time. I'll also make it one heck of a good time. So very excited about it and what other work I could do over time with driving. So I guess the main question, and probably why why also a lot of you wanted to go over, is what did driving give to me? The first thing it gave to me is confidence. I guess I see driving as like a sense of potential where I can cease and then just have it let me be at my best. It like enhances my work, and the said work also draws people towards it because they can relate to all the experiences and the fact that people want to be able to achieve and then be able to access great opportunities in both work and social worlds. Another thing is I get to use various tools or sensory tools, I like to call them, for driving. Like the picture here is from my old car, and a lot of those CDs are video game soundtracks. Like I always enjoy listening to video game soundtracks as I drive. That or either some specialty songs or some musicals, and then some old really Hollywood movies, and said movies being adapted to radio form. And I've actually watched, I think it was Wizard of Oz, or listened in this case, listened to an audio take on the Wizard of Oz. It happened one night, in a few Hitchcock movies. I listened to Strangers on the Train all the way down from my area in Farmington, Connecticut, and drove all the way down to Fairfield one time, listening to Strangers on the Train, and I didn't realize it was Hitchcock until the radio show mentioned it. So I had a lot of fun not only driving, it put me in a good zone where I'd be able to kind of hyper focus, but I was getting a great story from the master of suspense himself. So that's one of the things that people don't really expect to hear from me, but it's something that works for me, and again, something that just helps empower myself as a driver and also personally as well. And then along with confidence, it also gave me about 4.5, about 4.5 years of traveling in both work and recreational wise. The work wise is for the conferences and the resource fairs in Massachusetts. And like I think I went to Wakefield, which was north of Boston, for example. I drove to Shortbridge for something with HMEA's Autism Central. And along with that, I also drove around to meet with autism organizations in the New England area. Like I actually drove in Newark, not the city, but in kind of like upstate Newark to meet autism place called the Nicholas Center. Just wanted to see and learn more about what they do. So it was really good. And I always like to kind of be in person and make an impression. So I kind of drove around the states of Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, sparingly. I wish one is a bit more active in the autism scene, but I think it's more of a me problem where I just have to find the right people and the right organizations and opportunities. So eventually Rhode Island will be there. And then I drove in upstate New York. And then recreational wise, because I like to have fun, I drove into the Big E and in Springfield, Mass. So that's something I've done a couple times. And I went to Foxwoods, but not for the reason you think, the casinos. But it's not, again, not for the reason you think. The main reason I drive there is because of Junior's Restaurant, a famous cheesecake restaurant in New York City, and I adore their cheesecake. The minute I found out that there was a location in Connecticut, I made that a drive in a heartbeat, and I went for the weekend, and it was worth it. And I tried to squeeze some sort of excuse in. And now it's even more of an excuse for me to go to Foxwoods because they're opening a Gordon Ramsay restaurant in Foxwoods in the summertime. I had a friend that tagged me on Facebook, and there's actually I don't know if everyone here watches Gordon Ramsay, but his show Hell's Kitchen, they're opening up a Hell's Kitchen in Foxwoods, which is something I did not see coming, and I see it as really welcoming because I absolutely again I adore those type of shows, and again it gives me an excuse to drive there, and I use a lot of just Gordon Ramsay lessons and just kind of experiences or kind of always watch experiences to kind of help and get inspired and use I guess some of the lessons in what I do professionally. So really excited to see the place open up at Foxwoods. And then, but anyway, I also drove to other like movie. I drove for like some movie showings I really wanted to see. I saw a double feature of a movie that was kind of like so bad it's good called The Room. I actually even met one of the actors. It was like a random event that happened in Worcester, Massachusetts last year. And I saw it was possible. I saw it was doable. So I decided to do it. Had a great time. Met the actor and was able to get his autograph on two things, which is awesome. And I also had staff mistake me as being said actor, and I still don't understand that to this day, but it was something that occurred. So, and I don't know if anyone here watches anime, but I enjoy Studio Ghibli movies. So so after I got my license and I realized I could watch these things on the big screen, I was like, all right, let's do this. And I was able to watch because I love being able to kind of see movies on the big screen and get that full experience compared to like watching it at home. So again, vaccinational and it's something I care about. And then my most ambitious drive I've ever done, I'd be really quick and don't want to take too long on this, is that I actually drove to Watertown, Massachusetts for a restaurant owned by the creator of Bar Rescue, John Taffer and not the one in Connecticut, but the Massachusetts one. And I had a blast. I made that work. I didn't rent a Mass Pike. I refused tolls. Like, no, thank you. I'm not a tolls person. So I used several different highways, including I think it was 290, and then a few other highways. I used Route 20 over in Massachusetts after the 84 side. And yeah, just kind of used mixed GPS and listen to like two musicals, including Connecticut's own Anastasia musical. Believe it or not, it originated from Connecticut. So here's a fun fact. I think it came from, I think it was one of the Connecticut feeders. It was like a feeder, one of those feeder companies right before it hit Broadway. So kind of like a fun fact for those who are unaware. So it's musicals, and I just made it work because I'm a huge fan of Bar Rescue. Same idea like me liking Gordon Ramsay. For I do like Bar Rescue a bit more. So being able to do a drive there for a Friday and just eat over at there and have like one or two of these signature Bar Rescue items was something I didn't think I'd be doing. And it was an amazing time. It's still one of the best drives I've ever done in around this time. And expect it to be more because I'm looking into New Hampshire for a video game museum. So I just want to keep building myself up and kind of keep improving myself as a driver and also get some good life experiences as well. So there. And as you can tell, the last thing that driving did give me, it was a voice. Driving gave me a voice of like, it made me realize I had to listen to my inner voice and not just let anyone stop me. And just driving, again, a voice of just being able to take charge of your life and again, just selecting the transportation option you want to make, and this could apply to not just driving like others. It could be public buses or it could be trains, especially if one's in New York City. So yeah, so those are reasons transportation is so important, and unfortunately, not a lot of providers. I don't want to call anyone out, but there's not a lot of people that really think about how important transportation really is for a lot of people. So again, like being able to make that charge and being able to constantly go each day, like that's kind of what came as a result of me achieving my horizons and just finding like several niches that kind of just happens to work with me. So those are just following things that give me, and this is actually the quickest take I go. Usually this goes in 10 more minutes. And I wish, and I should be having my own, I'd be doing a public speaking website really soon. I wish it's up, but there's some things I'm finalizing. So maybe expect that during Autism Month in April. So look for that. But again, thank you all for attending this presentation. Again, name is Andrew Arboe. I have my email and my phone number on here. And now we open up the Q&A, and looks like I see one thing on Q&A so far.
Okay, so thank you, Andrew. So the first question is, can you speak to how to handle road tests for kids with acute anxiety, especially because you can't take medication right before the driving? This kid who is the person is speaking about does great during practice and lessons, but failed multiple road tests because of the acute anxiety that they had.
Okay, and remind me again, the person takes medication, right?
Yeah, but they can take medication prior to driving.
Okay, because I can't speak too much on the medication ones. So again, I would probably
But this
speak
is
to a
about,
doctor on that end. For anxiety, one thing I found out, and I don't know what DMV area, I use Wethersfield, for example. Whatever one is closest to you, if you're able to kind of get some work practice within that DMV area, that would be the most beneficial. And again, trying not to speak for everyone, but for some people, this some people, the fear of the unknown could be overwhelming, or just kind of the unfamiliar areas could scare people. And the good thing about the road tests for the DMVs, they're mostly in a circle when you really think about it. Like Wethersfield, when the Wethersfield test I did, it took me around a circle. It had me go around the old historical side of Wethersfield, and it had me go on the regular road that had all the shops and the restaurants. So so if you think about it as like a circle, and as long as you know exactly what kind of the speed limits and those little things that they could use to trick you if they really want to, it kind of provides you with some tools to be able to use and be able to combat that anxiety. And also just mentally preparing, and if this person also is good with some extra lessons if possible, or maybe like a scheduled mock-up test, that could also be really good just to know what you could do well and how the person could do better right before the test. At least there'll be those little things that you could tackle before we doing the test again. So hopefully those make sense. If you have any further questions, do reply. And a bunch of people are now going on to Q&A. So
um, do you have any particular strategies to deal with anxiety though, Andrew? Aside from knowing, where the road test is going to be, which kids can't always know those things?
what I do is kind of like mental strategies. Like I mentioned, I remember the memory, and that kind of made me realize I have to be really calm. It's kind of like just be able to kind of do it and kind of be able to, I just again kind of get used to the environment, and also just knowing that I have to be calm and just kind of reviewing materials. And there's actually one thing I did forget. I want to add this extra thing to the roll test one. And there's also some resources that you could access on YouTube. You could actually search up recorded roll test of other people's attempts while driving. I don't know how it's possible. I don't know how it was possible, but I was able to watch the full video of the DMV in Riversfield, someone's attempt on that, and it revealed a lot of what could occur during that. So again, they kind of give the idea of what's gonna come up, which is a lot better, but just knowing what will happen without realizing what will happen. So yeah. So then the sub part just coming up with a mental strategies that might also apply. Like think of something that could make you as calm as possible. And then especially I know like being without like a medication may complicate things. So just kind of finding what kind of works with you. There, I wish I can help out with more of the medication side, but I'm not an expertise on that side of the autism side.
Okay. Can you speak to strategies for those with executive functioning issues and in terms of memory and ADHD?
Going, I won't be able to say as much of ADHD. I don't have ADHD, and I don't want to speak for that population. And a lot of my executive functioning, I hope no one minds me going back here. What I do for a lot of the tools, and something that I guess gets me calm as well, is video game music. again, a lot of people I talk to, they never expect it, but it gives me a hyper focus, and regardless of what mood I am, it just helps me. And then even brushes, believe it or not, because like having like items of just like making it like familiar to you. And believe it or not, there's pressures that kind of common in driving. Like if you really like look around in vehicles' car, look in the dashboard to people's cars at a time, safely mind you, or when you're at stopped at a red light, you kind of see the occasional plush almost every day. At least I see it on my end. I know maybe some roads could be a bit more Pacific, so I kind of use a lot of that. And then for planning, I use like a mounted GPS. I don't do the big stick. I just do the phone and the GPS, and I put that near the steering wheel, so I don't have to go over the top of my neck. And just briefly just glance at it and just kind of more do my thing. And if I want to have the audio of the GPS go up, I can do that. And then once I kind of do a lot more drives, then probably because I'm more day and I want to be able to do more things, it your body gets more used to it. Like everyone has a different feel for driving. Believe me, when I started to drive, because I actually drove a mid-sized vehicle at one point, and it felt different. Like it felt much different when driving like a type of car I do. I drive a Subaru Impreza, so there's also that may kind of go into the executive functioning as well.
Thank you, Andrew. The next question is, do you use the blue envelope for your license and insurance?
Funny enough, I have it in my car, but I never really have to use it. And I probably could take it out because I don't necessarily need it from my end. But however, if any of you want to use it, that's great. Again, everyone has different needs, and that's honestly okay. I just don't see a reason for it. The only main reason I have it because I did some filming with Selvin, Connecticut on their police video, and they're doing a traffic practice stop in Farmington, Connecticut. I know. I think most of the families here, well, I'm guessing will likely not be there. But if you know anyone that's in Central Connecticut, they do honest good work, and I'm showing up there at 8. I'm gonna be there from 8 to 12 o'clock because it is nearby, and it's just why not?
Okay, so the next question is, my OCD acts up a lot, and I also get scared. A lot of people will think I'm pathetic if I fail my test. Do you have any good calming techniques?
That's kind of why. Well, granted, that's kind of what the video game music does to me. And granted, I didn't realize it's for power until after I got my license. For kind of the main thing, and let's actually go back to that slide. Is this I kind of used the memory thing because I felt anxiety when I was waiting for the DMV, sitting at the DMV. And remembering how I had to be calm to be able to kind of do the thing, was kind of what helped me be in a calm state. Because if I tried to be in a different emotional state, and depending on said DMV inspector, like it could go a much different direction. So with thanks to remembering and then realizing that again, I just have to go and do it and be as calm as possible, and see and just be familiar around the DMV area as much as you can. And if your DMV instructor also is okay with you asking, okay, a left or right, that can make a little difference, because if you don't know the direction you're taking, that could go into trouble. And some instructors are not that strict. So if you're able to kind of get away with asking, can I do a left or a right? It gives you a sense of familiarity, and just also a heads up, just knowing what will come up next. And it'd be like, okay, I'll make this left turn, or I'll make this right turn. So again, just some little things that can help you out on the actual wall test.
Thank you. How does your fluctuating attention impact your decision making while you're driving?
I think it got better, and because most people get their license around the teenager one, and I think I did forgot one part. If it requires you more time to get your license, you don't have there's no time limit. Don't rush yourself. I didn't get my license when I was 25. Like I urge people not to stress about age. Like if you need more time, that's that. You need more time. And sometimes it's not a bad thing, because the human brain, like it's still developing. It isn't until age 26 where a lot of the decision making is kind of fully developed. So if you feel like if you're not ready for that bit, or if I guess if any individuals are here or families here have like teenage aged individuals, like it's nothing wrong about waiting.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your fluctuating attention, if you have?
Oh yeah, yeah. Thank you. I was about to say there was a part I'm missing, but thank you for the reminder. And a lot of it is just kind of more of just being able to kind of do things and just kind of do it a lot more where a lot more memories stored into me. And the music, as long as it doesn't, it doesn't obviously just disrupt, and music can do different things to people. It just kind of helps me with hyperfocus, just kind of knowing what to do. And now it's kind of like I've been there, done that, and I'm able to kind of just do my thing. And the music also helps balance any emotions I may have either before I drive or during my drive. So I don't want to have like a like an extreme emotion occurring, because that wouldn't be good on the world. So I kind of just use a lot of just music and gets familiar items, and just again developed like a routine that kind of makes me feel good and be cautious while driving.
Okay.
And it just kind of builds up over time, and just knowing, and I'm sorry, and just kind of like the more road experience I have, like the more things you catch on, like this driver is going slowly on the highway, what do you do? Or if you're noticing like noticing emergency vehicles going on, it's like kind of being on top, because a lot of it is playing the rating game and just seeing what people will do and reacting in the most rational way possible. Not always easy, and there's always things I'm learning, so I just kind of just constantly just kind of work on myself to be able to kind of be a good driver. Hope that addresses attention.
How do you deal with tunnel vision while driving?
Tunnel vision, like I imagine not actual tunnels.
No, well, not being able to see peripheral out of the sides. Just do you just focus on going straight? What happens when you see cars coming in from the right or the left? Your peripheral vision.
I don't think for me, I don't think tunnel vision occurred to me. I don't think it was an issue. Like I always keep looking at my side mirrors, and even when there's not a lot, even if there's not a lot of traffic on the highways or multiple lanes in those type of non-highway roads, I always like to look at my sides, because you never know, and keep looking in my rear as well. So I don't think an issue like that came up. I wish I can provide you more. I just don't think it was an issue for me, or at least nothing I noticed. So hopefully, I hope that addresses it. I hope, and kind of wish I can give you more, but that's kind of my personal take.
Did you ever worry about getting into an accident while you were learning to drive because of unexpected things happening, like other bad drivers? And if so,
Uh,
how did you handle that if that happened to you?
I didn't have any accidents come up, but it's pretty universal for a lot of drivers to be nervous about what to do in case they get in an accident. So it's pretty natural. I think because of me being knowing about that, and then seeing a lot more driving in action, the more you do it, you kind of pick up on several things. And I actually talk about it this way because one of the common things I got in my accuracy is how do drivers deal with other drivers on the road? Because if you see something, you can't do a lot about it. Like you can't really honk to them. I mean, you could, but that just makes them mad. And you can't really try to do anything extra, because again, that endangers yourself and others. And the way I describe it is like you don't do anything. You just run from them and be like, okay, I'm not going to be this person. And I know this probably sounds like a silly one, but I really do think it applies. You want to think of it as like a bad chef in Hell's Kitchen. You see this chef screwing up this risotto dish, this beef Wellington multiple times, and it's like to a point where you realize that you're not, that you realize that you see enough times, you realize you're not going to cook it this way. I know, but again, different one, but at the same time, you can apply that to driving. You see someone going the opposite lanes, or it's like, I'm not going to be like that driver. I'm just going to continue just being safe, and just do my part. I'm just making sure roads are safe. Again, like if you try to do anything extra that you can't do, you're putting yourself in trouble, very much. And yes, I do watch a lot of reality shows. I know, or at
Um,
least I watch a lot of Gordon Ramsay and John Taffer. So
Do you have any suggestions about the written test for people with who are very anxious or have dyslexia? And I guess the dyslexia wouldn't impact you, but how about people who just get very anxious about the written test?
Okay, and there's several ones, and I know from some states there's like an audio version of that. It was like an audio version that one could listen to, and depending on if you're able to work somewhere, able to listen to something, and if you wanted to have something over time to kind of help you focus and what you be able to memorize information more. I know like the audio one of the DMV can be really good. I think Connecticut. I have to double check with if Connecticut has a audio version of their manual, so I would have to double check that, and definitely something to look up. For and then for memorizing questions, and if you're able to use driving schools, be able to use them as resources, or if you're in a high school setting where you could do like the written test, that's a resource you could do. And then there were some online resources, and one of the websites I really like, and I hope no one minds me, I'm gonna put this in the okay, and okay, the other host will probably have to type this out. I use something called drivingtest.org, and it's a really good multiple choice like website where you could take multiple choice questions that are based off of the Connecticut driving laws, and they do really good. They tell you not only what you did right, they also kind of go over why you did these questions wrong. So it was something that you could study over time. And I think they'd always make like constant changes over time. There might be some videos, but it's been a while since we actually took it. Because there's not too much reason for me to review it after I got my license years ago. So some resources there. And so audio ones, and what's one of those is don't be afraid to create like new strategies. Like I do for a flashcard, so you kind of like brainstorm and figure out and they just know your person on what strategies might help them be able to memorize and master these sort of concepts.
So that was a good drivingtest.org is what you
Yeah, yeah, I wish I could type it on there, but I didn't see anything for the public, so
okay, so that's
I can email it to you afterwards. I'm more happy to do that.
okay, so that's drivingtest.org.
And yeah, the thing was that excellent. The thing was like there's like a line between the driving and the test, but I'll send you an email and you can like send that to everyone.
On the test, what if you have problems with distinguishing between your left and your right? Can you let the driving instructor know that in advance?
Oh, during the roll test?
Yeah, during the road test.
I don't see that being an issue. I mean, I haven't really asked that on my own personal perspective. I feel like one of the best things that you could do, one of the best things you could do is to call your area's DMV in advance to see if you're able to get accommodations. Like you can't really walk in there and just request. Like you'll probably have to call in advance and just see what they could offer. And for those that are under the age of 21, I know next street you can do the DMV test at their school locations, or that helps with a lot less anxiety. And if one takes lessons over there over a different driving school, you're a lot more accustomed to that when just doing a random DMV vehicle. So that might be something, and driving schools might be able to accommodate that. It just all depends on the DMV, all depends on the higher ups on that end. So it's always good to ask. It's a lot better when trying to assume. And a lot of reasons for both, I guess, yourself, the parent, and your teen, your adult to stress.
Okay, from a student, how do you focus on the written test? And they say, I can never focus long enough to study and always end up rushing too much without noticing because I just want to get it over with. So do you have any ideas about how to help kids who can't focus on the written test and studying for the written test?
Kind of not only knowing that, and again, it sounds like it just finding a specific strategy that would help them not rush as much. Like it sounds like there's kind of multiple things going on in this case. Oh, like it's maybe some executive functioning in missed, or maybe just not knowing the questions, or kind of like a sense of impulsiveness. At least my take. I don't know the personal circumstances and for this one. So I probably look like it might be one of those where you may have to create like a strategy, do something that kind of works for them, and so they don't have to kind of rush the information. Because I guess in my take, it's probably better to take your time with the test. Like it's not timed to my knowledge. I don't know if they changed that, but I would call the written test, it's not timed. So, and for the, I think I know one accommodation in DMV, at least in Wethersfield, it's probably different everywhere, is like you can request for an audio, I think you can request like an audio version of the test where you be able to listen to the questions. Again, everyone's different writing styles. So I think for that one, it's just kind of like knowing your kid and trying to find a strategy that just makes sense for them and what would kind of lessen the impulsive and just want to get it done, because there's certain things like that you don't want to rush.
Okay.
I hope that addressing some things I'm not too familiar with, but these are really good questions, I have to say.
Yeah, those are a lot of really good questions.
So
That's
thank you.
the end of the questions, and it's just getting to be 8 o'clock. So any more questions? Just,
Oh, and we get this back to the Q&A. So
okay. So I think, Andrew, thank you so very much. I think that was the end of the questions, and that's the end of our time here today.
oh, I see something else. I see
Hold
one
on,
more.
hold
Oh,
on,
two
got
more.
another one. Oh, we got some thank
Oh,
you.
no problem. No problem. I like talking about driving, so it's not an issue.
Okay, so thank you, Andrew. Thank you so very much.
Oh, free questions now.
Okay, I think they're going to be thank yous. Yep, we got thank yous from
Oh, thank yous. My bad. I'm trying not to show this in case if there's any like personal information because it is recorded. So
right. No, that's
kind of
fine.
careful about not like accidentally pressing it, and it turns out it is. So I think it's no thank you. I don't want to assume. Maybe.
And your story and your strategies from everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Andrew.
Okay, I will send some additional information to you right
Okay,
afterwards, including
and
the
anything that
test link.
Andrew sends, we'll post on our website along with the video and the PowerPoint. Okay, so thank you so much, Andrew.
You're
Good night,
welcome. I'm
everybody.
happy to be here.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good one.